Welcome, everyone, to Life Beyond 6 Feet. We are your host, Damian Christie from RKB Paranormal, Kelly Schaefer from K2 Paranormal Research. Kelly, welcome back.
Woohoo! I came back.
And I'm glad you have power in order to come back. So
Yes.
I know that's been a crazy few days for you. So
5 days.
oh goodness.
I can tell you though that Samsung refrigerators, the brand new ones, will keep your stuff frozen for like 4 days.
Oh, nice. That's very cool.
I didn't start losing stuff until day 5.
Nice.
So
this
and
week
then it was gone.
So this week we're continuing the trend of having owners of haunted locations on, and this week I'm very excited to have on the co-owner of the old hospital on College Hill in Williamson, West Virginia, Miss Tonya Webb. Tonya, welcome to Life Beyond 6 Feet.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure. Excited to be here.
Good.
We absolutely are glad you're able to come on. I'm glad you were able to bump your original date up. We didn't have Tonya scheduled for another few weeks, and I had a cancellation this week, so I reached out to see if she was available, and it all worked out. So hopefully you've been doing,
perfect.
and hopefully your power stays on, because you said you've been dealing with some storms too. So hopefully we can get through this thing before anybody loses electricity.
Cross your fingers.
Fingers and toes. Yeah, so I was gonna say, if you see my lights flickering on and off, just go with it.
Yeah, I know what that's like. Yeah, I had a disco ball in my house.
Oh,
and then it went brown out.
Oh goodness, it's never fun. So no. like we always do, we're just gonna dive right into this thing. So Tonya, have you always been into the paranormal?
Well, I get asked that a lot, and I'm gonna have to be honest and say, and I know this probably won't make a lot of sense, yes and no. I've always been, ever since I was a little girl, kind of attracted to spooky and horror things. I mean, my favorite things were horror movies and all of that growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to say strictly paranormal, I'd probably have to say no.
Right.
I think I was always fascinated with it. I just didn't really fully understand it. And I was kind of drawn to it, but I just really didn't know, that I needed to be educated on it more than what I was. So
right.
It's kind of a tricky question because I feel like I was always drawn to it. I stuck more with the horror side of it and the spooky side of it, if that makes any sense at all. But now that I've got this hospital, it's kind of turned me more into that field than the horror field. So
it has a tendency to do that, huh?
Right. But
it kind of goes
right. Well, speaking of horror, I'm a big horror fan. I've got quite a few horror tattoos. So, like, what was your favorite horror movies growing up?
The first recollection that I have was probably when I was around 5 years old, and it was the original Halloween.
Nice.
I'm a huge Halloween fan. I love all the franchises. Halloween 1 and 2 are probably my favorites. But I can remember being a young kid and going trick-or-treating, and then my parents, it would be on pretty much back then, it was on TV on a lot of stations. And I would dump my candy out of my bucket and just sit there and watch Michael go to town killing people.
Right.
My sister's screaming in the other room, and I'm just sitting there going, woohoo, this is awesome, and I'm only 5 years old. But I grew up in the Michael Myers and the Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger. But I also love the classics as well. I love Frankenstein. I love the Mummy. I just always love that type of, and I don't know, my parents think I'm a little weird, or they did anyway. So I don't know what led me to that, but I just always thought they were so fascinating. And I still think this today. I think that the horror movies back in those days were so much better than what they are today. There are some good ones.
There are some really good ones. Yeah. But
there are some really good ones, but it just doesn't have that same feeling as the ones from the 80s. And
they really don't. Not. It's almost like Hollywood just recycles everything now. So
I could watch the original Dracula, I think, like 100 times and never get tired of that.
Right.
So I was always kind of attracted to that, and I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but so that kind of field and just haunted houses in general and spooky stories in general it never scared me. I was just always kind of drawn to them. So it's kind of strange. If you would have told me 20 years ago I was going to own a creepy hospital, I probably would have laughed at you and thought it was crazy. But it kind of fits my theme. So I'm a happy camper now. So it's okay.
That's awesome. I think I ran into you. Did you go to the West Virginia Paracon?
I did. Yes.
I ran into you up there. Yeah. That's where, yeah, I remember hearing about the hospital and then running into you up there. Yeah. I was going to swing by and I was just way too tired to drive out there.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, we went.
That was a great Paracon.
Yeah, we went last year and we went this year as well.
Good. I think they're doing it this year, aren't they?
I think so. As far as I know.
Yeah, at the Blatton. What's the name of the hotel?
Blennerhassett, maybe.
There you go. That's the one. Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yep.
We're gonna try. I'm not 100% sure we can make it. We only Charlie and I we don't have a lot of help running the hospital, so we try to select so many a year. But I'm not sure we can make it, but we're going to try. But we try to do at least 3 or 4 cons a year. We're getting ready to go this week to the Gettysburg one. I've always wanted.
Oh, there's so many people going to that one.
I know it.
I'm so excited. I've never been, so this is my first time. So we're going as vendors, but to help advertise for the hospital. But I'm just excited myself to see the area because so much history and so much,
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. But we try to do about 3 or 4 cons a year, especially if they're in our home state. We really try to promote in our home state. So
excellent.
So
yeah, we got the Tennessee Haunts coming up in October. Yeah, October.
Yeah, like mid-October. We still hadn't committed to it yet, but we still got some time.
You do.
Yeah. Not that far off though. Really.
Yeah. So obviously, this episode's about you being a co-owner of a very haunted hospital. How did that even come about? How did you get a hold of this place?
The only thing that I can tell you is probably heavenly something was looking out for me and luck. I've always been just a little history on the hospital. I was actually born in that hospital, and so was
nice.
Cool.
Charlie was born there as well.
Very cool.
I was always fascinated with the two buildings that we purchased, which was the hospital and the nurses' college beside of it. And I have been trying for years. I went away and left the area for a little while, went off to college and lived in different places, and then I moved back. And, I had been trying for years to try to get access to the building, but the hospital was owned by so many different people over the course of the time because the hospital that I now own was tied in with the newer Williamson Memorial and they were not severed. So it was like a package deal. And then long story short, COVID hit in 2020. The Williamson Memorial Hospital that was functioning at the time, our little area is small and the rural hospitals were really struggling to stay afloat. And sadly, ours did not make it. So when that happened, it severed the ties between the newer hospital and then the hospital that I now own. So I was able to step in and get that and the nurses' college as well. I was just kind of, and I know this might sound weird, but just kind of drawn to it. I just felt like I didn't want someone to step in and just knock it down because there's so much history. We're talking about a 95-year-old hospital. It's where my life started. I lost 2 grandparents in that hospital that I never met. And so many people from around the United States that we're finding out was actually born in that hospital. So it was such a hub for this area for so long. And, I'm a big history buff and I love, I think to understand the paranormal, sometimes you have to understand the history of where you're at and what's located there. So I just didn't want someone to come in and either knock it down and make it a parking lot or just buy it up and let it rot. And that's what a lot of people do just for tax write-off. So I bit the bullet, took the chance. I really didn't think that I would get it because I was, up against some really big hitters and I was a little scared, but I just had the mentality, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And here we are.
Right. Absolutely.
So
keep going. I'm over here choking again.
Yeah, you are. So what kind of
Oh.
activity do you have up at the hospital?
Oh gosh. You name it, we probably had it. If you're talking about personal experience, as far as I'm concerned, everything from voices to shadow figures to doors shutting on their own that they should not shut on their own, lights going on and off. Children, that one probably freaks me out more than anything, is hearing little kids running or giggling. Not that they're scary in any way, but it's just,
It's a little, I
yeah,
agree with you. It's a little
children
creepy.
are
It's
a
a
Yeah.
little
little it's a
different
little
from,
spooky, yeah.
I think Children
yeah,
of the Corn did that for us.
well, I think so. And there's some Poltergeist and some other movies that we watched,
Right,
but
right.
the history of this hospital is, it's sad in some ways, because if you think about it, it went through the Great Depression and went through all those diseases, and sadly a lot of the victims were children. And if you were to visit the local cemetery here, that's a kind of close to the hospital where a lot of people were buried, a lot of them, I would say at least 70 to 80% of it's children's graves.
Oh
So
my.
it's really sad. It's just sad and unfortunate. And I feel that when I get in the hospital. And then when the hospital shut down as a hospital in 88, they turned it, thankfully they saved it and turned it into a clinic, and they put the pediatric floor in the basement. So when
Oh,
you go to the basement, it's literally still got the children's borders on the walls, and it's still, when we first purchased it, you couldn't walk down the hallways without seeing children's pictures plastered all over the hallway
wow.
walls.
Wow.
So it was a little creepy for us, knowing
Right.
that all those kids in there, and knowing that a lot of children had passed away in that hospital, but a lot of children had been born in that hospital too. So the good thing about hospitals, and I think what's fascinating for me is, life starts there and life ends there. So
Mhm.
you've got all those connections. It kind of comes full circle. So it's been pretty fascinating and pretty interesting for me. And it's taught me a lot. I'll be honest with you. It goes back to the question, how long you've been into the paranormal field. Probably more so now than I ever have. But until you experience it yourself and you get that first, oh my God, that really happened.
Right.
There are people that are skeptical about it. And I wouldn't say that I was skeptical, but I really wanted something to happen to me for me to be able to really relate more to the paranormal investigators and to the field. And when it did, it kind of blew me out of the waters, because your mind just, it takes you a minute or two to process it.
Mhm.
For me, it took me a couple of days, I'll be honest with
Right.
you. Because I'm like, did that just really happen? Because
I ask
I
myself
tried,
every time. I ask myself, did that really happen? Did that really happen? And I look at it from like 9 million different ways to say if there was anything that says no, it didn't. But yeah.
and it's not that I was trying to debunk it or anything, but I was just sitting there going, did I just make that up? Did I just hear that? Was it my mind playing games?
Mhm.
But there's some things you just cannot explain, and then when it happens to you, it just, it makes you really think, wow, there's stories that need to be told. There are people here that really want to tell them. So it helps me knowing that we're trying to keep the building alive and keep these spirits alive. So it's been a learning experience. We're going into our third year this year, so we're still kind of the new kids on the block in a way. But it's been it's never a dull moment, I can tell you that.
Right.
So it's been a learning experience for me, but I've enjoyed it. I've never come across anything that I would feel or describe as evil. Just basically spirits that want to reach out and talk to you, or maybe have something to say. I didn't handle it the right way the first couple of times, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better. So,
Right.
thanks to the wonderful paranormal investigators that we've had. It's a lot to, and I don't want to mess it up. I wish I could have a couple of do-overs with some of the things that have happened to me up there, but it's a lesson and it's a teaching and it takes time. So it's pretty wild. And when I think about, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures that people have caught, images and shadow figures. One of the most popular ones is the nurse that never clocked out. there was a great image of her that was caught, and you just can't explain those things. You just
What?
can't. And it wasn't even by an investigator. It was a lady that was taking one of our tours, and she caught it on her phone. And we put it on our website and our Instagram and Facebook page. But basically,
is that the one where they actually captured it outside the building?
yes, she was
Yeah.
outside the building going
Oh,
into.
now I gotta go look for this.
Yeah, when she was actually going into the first floor, which would have been the ER at the time.
Mhm.
So she had her iPhone, and we had just finished a tour, and she was actually in between the hospital and the nurses college. She was just trying to get a picture of the city of Williamson at night. She wasn't even trying to capture anything.
Right.
And she took 2 quick pictures with her iPhone, and the first picture, absolutely nothing, but the second picture caught that image. And as soon as she called it, she ran back to us to show it. So we know she didn't doctor it or alter it in any way. She didn't have time.
Right.
So it was a pretty amazing capture. You can see what we think looks like a nurse going into the building, and she's got the white dress with the red sash, and her hair's pulled back in a bun.
Mhm.
So probably would have been around, we're guessing around the 50s or 60s there, around that time. So it was a pretty amazing capture.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
pretty neat.
I'm gonna need to look for it. That would be awesome to see.
Right.
Yeah, it
Now,
was cool.
now before you became, the co-owner of a haunted location, did you ever have any kind of personal experiences, or do they all come once you started owning this hospital?
Probably not personal experience as far as the paranormal goes. I mean, I don't want to say I was sensitive to things, but I could pick up on things pretty easily, if that made sense.
Right.
But the stuff that really escalated when I bought the hospital. My first experience in the hospital, I hadn't had it maybe 2 months, 2 to 3 months, when things started happening. And one time I could walk in that building and not be afraid of anything. And then when my first experience happened, I was like, oh, I need to take this a little bit more serious.
Right.
So I need to be on, I need to be on alert, because believe it or not, my previous job, I was the probation officer for my county. So, my mind triggers back to, oh, somebody's broken into the building or something's going on. I need to be real careful, that kind of thinking. So,
Right.
it's been a learning experience for me, for sure. I'm a whole lot better now than I was 2 years ago.
Right. And so how was the community in general accepting that, like, now there's this paranormal hotspot that these people are coming to?
Well, honestly, at first we had some that wasn't real receptive to the idea. If you know anything about our location at all, we're in the middle of the Bible Belt.
Mhm.
So I had a few people, that really, I think it was just honestly misunderstanding what paranormal was. I
Mhm.
think in their mind, what we were taught around here was, when you heard that, it was always associated with demonic stuff.
Right.
And I think it was just lack of education. I really do. And then we were fortunate, because when we first opened up, we were discovered by Destination Fear, the group
Mhm.
that was on the Travel Channel,
Right.
and they were kind of the ones who launched us. Oh, I'm sorry, I just dropped my camera. I'm sorry, I just about fell.
That happens.
It does.
But they discovered us, and it aired in December of 2020, and we opened in 21. And I think when our community watched that, they didn't seem so negative anymore. I mean, you've always got one in every crowd,
Mhm.
that, especially when you live in a small little city like we do. But overall, I think most people have been really receptive and supportive of us. So it's been okay.
Right.
Every now and then we'll have that might trigger some issues, but mostly it's been okay.
Right. And I imagine that's how a lot of people originally found out about the location, is through Destination Fear and that crew. Because I mean, I never heard of it until then, and now it's up
Yes.
there. Now it's up there on my bucket list. So it's those guys
We
kind
just
of.
need to get you up there.
Yes, we'd love
Yeah,
to have
we
you.
do.
They really,
That would be a trip.
It would.
I tell a lot of people we owe a lot to them, because when they contacted us in 2020, I was kind of blown away. At first, I thought it was a joke because I didn't, I don't even know how they found us, to be honest with you. I don't know if they found us on the internet or our Facebook page. I forgot what they told us. But they told us that, there's this show on the Travel Channel. It's called Destination Fear, and we're looking for a season 2 finale. And I had heard of Destination Fear, but I hadn't really watched all the way through. So I was kind of limited on my knowledge, but I knew a little bit about Dakota. I knew about the investigators. So when they called, they said, well, you're in the running. You're up against 3 other places for the finale. I thought, well, shoot, there ain't no way. We're brand new. We're the new kids on the block. This is a little hospital in a little town. And within 3 days, they called back and they said Dakota fell in love with the hospital. He liked the fact that no one had been in there before and no one had investigated it before. And the creepy history of it all and the fact that it was 90 some years old at the time really fascinated him. So that they chose us.
That's
but
awesome.
They gave me a heads up. They said, listen, once this airs in December, you better be ready to go because
you'll be on everybody's radar.
Yeah, they said be ready for the phone calls and all that stuff. So I already had the website and all that worked out, but we were still tweaking our social media and all that. So my first goal was not to even open until spring of 21. But because Destination Fear hit in December of 20, we opened up in February of 21. So it was exactly like what they said. It was it was a blessing. It was a great way to open. But at the same time, it was also kind of hard for us because we had people trying to break in, people driving from all over. And it was, it was hard to manage at first because we were brand new, but we worked through all of it. And like you said, to this day, we still get people come because they watch the old Destination Fear show on Discovery Plus or Travel Channel if they replay it. And, they still help us out. And they were just here, they're not on Travel Channel anymore. They're Project Fear on YouTube. And they were just here a few months ago. And our show just dropped for them on YouTube yesterday. So, or Friday.
That's good.
They came back. They called us, let us know that unfortunately the Travel Channel had canceled their show, and they loved the hospital. I believe we were Chelsea's pick, and wanted to know if they could come back. So we were happy to have them back.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
I hated that their show got canceled, but we were, I think YouTube will do really well. I think I think they could be more themselves.
I think so.
And
the only
I think
thing
it'll be a good for them.
The only thing me and my wife haven't liked so far is they leave you on a cliffhanger until the next week.
Well, they wanted to straight. I didn't realize they were going to make it 2 episodes, and I guess in a way, I think that's good because on Destination Fear they only had an hour to cram everything in, and you felt like they missed a lot of stuff. So. It's pros and cons, but they do leave you hanging. I can't wait till next Friday's episodes because they have to do one of them has to do something really wild. So I'm excited to see how that turned out.
I think
that'd be fun.
I think I have a guess on what the whoever it is has to do, but of course,
I think they pinned it on their YouTube channel.
Yeah, and
awesome.
I'm like. And whenever when it came across and I was like, I told my wife, I was like, I bet one of them's gonna have to do that. I was like, would you do that? She's like, hell no, I wouldn't do that. So if it's what I'm thinking of, I would do it. So and actually we could actually talk about it because this episode will come out after the episode comes out next week. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
So I think they're going to be putting somebody in one of the what is it, the body boxes or something in the morgue.
The body cooler from the morgue.
Body cooler.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking it's going to be, and I'm like, man, I was like, I would do that. I was like, but I would go into panic mode, being afraid like the door wouldn't open back up or something.
Well, and I think that's kind of what happened. I think he was in there for quite a while, and then when we met before they left, he told me it kind of freaked him out a little bit, and they didn't let him out. But the bad part was he dropped his walkie-talkie, so he
Oh,
couldn't
man.
communicate with him to try to get him. It dropped all the way to the bottom, so he
Oh,
was like
goodness.
freaking out and begging for them to come and get him. And he was like,
Right.
"I don't know why I did that." I haven't got to see, exactly what happened with him, but I do know he was in there for quite a while.
Oh, goodness.
I don't
So,
know if I could do that. I don't know if I could be
I
enclosed
don't know if
for
you
that
could do
long.
it, Damien. I don't know if you could.
I mean, I'm not really claustrophobic that I know of.
I'd
but-
take bets on how long it took for you to scream.
Well, shit, you're locked inside of something like that and you're hearing stuff, you're going to get spooked a little bit.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I don't think I could do it either. I don't mind looking at it, looking at the drawers, open it up.
No.
But to think of how many people were actually in there, it still got the last date it was certified.
Oh,
It just, I can't. I don't know if I would have it in me to spend hours in there, or even probably 5 minutes with the door
goodness.
closed. So yeah, I don't think I could.
And so did y'all actually just get the elevator up and running too?
Well, we did when they were there, but then, lovely West Virginia and our weather, we had a bad storm about a month and a half ago, and it took out the power. So we have power to certain areas of the hospital. Of course, the elevator is one, and everything came back on except the elevator.
Except the elevator.
Yeah, right now the elevator does not work, but we're hoping we can find somebody to help us fix it, because it's kind of hard to find somebody to fix a 95-year-old elevator.
Right.
It's hard. They don't make them like that anymore. So
Nope.
we got to try to find someone to help us get that up and running, because it's definitely a big part of our hospital.
Right.
We originally was not going to get it fixed because they are very expensive to fix and very hard to find people to do it. But we just felt like it's part of the original hospital. It's part of our history. But then we had some paranormal teams who had contacted us, and who had some disabilities and couldn't climb steps. So we did whatever we could, pitched in whatever we could to get it certified. So that way people, if they were in wheelchairs or if they had any kind of disability to where they couldn't climb steps, it would give them the ability to go to all the floors as well. We thought that was only fair.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I'd like to see more locations start catering to the disabled.
Right.
Yeah,
or just somebody who don't, have very good knees or something. They don't want to climb up a bunch of steps. That'd be a good thing to have.
Bad back.
Yeah,
right.
It's and our steps are not too bad, honestly. But I feel bad when people that are maybe confined in a wheelchair or maybe have a cane and they can't climb a lot of steps, they really want to come in and they're just limited to the first floor. I feel like they miss out on a lot.
Right.
So really one of the first groups, and I always talk about this when we do our tours, one of the first groups that visited us, I think there was like 6 or 7 of them, and one of them he was in a wheelchair, and the only thing that he could move, if I recall correctly, were his hands and maybe his head. And he was a super great guy. His personality, they were top notch. The team was just wonderful. And I kind of panicked when he got there, because I didn't know if I had advertised that it wasn't handicap accessible at the time, because we had just literally just opened and we didn't have the elevator working. Listen, we didn't even have bathrooms. We had porta potties outside. So it was kind of bad. But he was super sweet. He read my face and he was like, "Don't worry about it, Tonya. It's okay. My team's got me covered. They carry me from floor to floor."
Oh,
that's awesome.
I watched them do that, and Charlie helped as well. Now he didn't get to make it to all the floors, but that team pulled together and they lifted him and took him up all those steps and stuff. And I told Charlie when we come back down, I said, I don't care if we have to go in debt for 10 years. Let's try to get this working. And so he can come back and enjoy it. And I hope they do. I hope the team comes back. Right now it ain't working, but we're hoping it'll get fixed in the next little while. But I just felt like, for people, it just didn't seem fair. And I know some locations are not able to do that. And I respect that, completely understand that.
Yeah.
But we have the ability to do it. So we're going to try our best to keep it going if we can.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome.
Right.
Yeah,
So
'cause
as you're moving forward with this, what are your plans for the hospital? Are you gonna like just keep it as a research center? Are you going to do historical renderings of it and maybe have it certified as a historical location? What are you gonna do with it?
right now we don't have any plans for the historical society part of it. We do want to keep it as true to history as we can. We want to, right now we're kind of focusing on the addition that was kind of built on that was not part of the original hospital. We're working on a gift shop slash museum to kind of pay homage to some of the old,
Great idea.
we found some old equipment, old doctor's bags, old needles, just artifacts that you can't find anymore.
Hmm.
We've got those locked up, but just somewhere where we could showcase that, and maybe like a little lobby area to where someone could come in and sit and listen about the history of the hospital for the 95 years that it's been open.
Nice.
That's our goal.
That is
Um,
really great.
yeah, we just, I'm a big history buff, and I want to keep it as true to history as possible. The nurses college is the building beside of it, and that might be a route we go with the historical society, because that building has had so much damage done to it. The ceiling has actually collapsed on it.
Oh,
Mm.
So but it was one of the first nurses colleges in the state of West Virginia, and people have caught some really cool apparitions in those windows as well. But it's a beautiful building. It's 7 stories. I would love to take it back to the way that it used to look in the 20s and 30s.
mhm.
And I would love to maybe turn it into a mini hotel or a bed and breakfast or something.
Oh, that'd
Nice.
be
So that way,
great.
yeah, that way when teams come, they could investigate the nurses college, but stay there as well.
And stay there as well,
Um,
yeah.
but that's going to take us a long time, just because the building's in such poor condition. But I feel like it's part of history, and we should save it because it goes along with the hospital.
Hmm.
Honestly, if you think about it, I mean, it was kind of a state and an art hospital at its time, because you didn't really hear of teaching hospitals back in the 20s. And that's what this one was. Williamson Memorial had the college to go along with it. So the nurses would go over to the college, they would study there, stay there, and then they would go over to the hospital to work and train. So it was pretty neat that those 2 buildings were still standing. And I hope we can preserve them, because they're beautiful buildings, and I don't want to see it get any worse than it is. But as with anything, with old buildings, it takes a lot of time and money. So we may get
Exactly.
there. We're hoping to. We're thinking about maybe some fundraisers to do,
Right.
maybe even like a Paracon in the future, to help get that started. So we're thinking about it, trying to come up with some ideas. But right now, we just want to preserve the hospital, keep it. It's 95 years old. Honestly, to be 95, it's still in pretty decent shape. So we're hoping we can just make enough to maintain it until we can start working on the nursing college. So,
Oh, there you
but
go.
Great.
we do things. We do historical trips. We do tours. We even do field trips for kids. We've had several
Nice.
schools call us about historical tours, even if you're not into the spooky stuff and just into the history, because this hospital played such a factor in our area. It was an important fixture for the community, and a lot of neat history that surrounded it. So Mingo County in general, and Williamson in general, has a lot of history. Anytime people come and the paranormal teams, or if they just come in for tours, we always tell them, hey, while you're here, go visit this place, go see this place, because there's just so much history. And it's one of those things, it's like, wow, did that really happen? You're like, yeah. Yeah, it really did. So, it's just full of adventure and just different, if you're into the history stuff and
Right.
the paranormal and spooky stuff, this county really can keep you busy for quite a while.
Well,
Heck
for
yeah.
me, history and the paranormal go hand in hand. So
Absolutely.
I've always
Yeah.
said that. I think,
Yeah.
to really understand where you're investigating, I think you got to know the history
You
about
have
the
to know the
place.
history of the place. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, just walking into, and there are teams that do that, and I respect that. But I think to understand, the spirits that you come in contact with, you really got to know, what this hospital did, and who did it serve, and how long was it, and what kind of patients walked through these doors,
Mhm.
and that kind of stuff. What did it stand for? Was it evil? Was it good? And that kind of stuff. So I agree with you 100%. I think
Yeah,
history plays a big role.
Yeah, without the history, anybody can make up its history, and that's not what you want.
No, not at all.
You want to do the true history of the building.
Right.
Yeah. And what's fascinating about this hospital is the first one was actually in downtown Williamson, and it was just a 3-story wooden structure. And I think it was built around 25, 24. And Dr. Conley, who's one of the co-founders of the hospital, he was working there one day and the hospital caught fire. It caught fire on the first floor. He was smart enough to get everybody up to the 3rd floor. And what he had nurses do was throw mattresses out the windows. And he would literally start throwing patients and babies and nurses and everybody out through to try to save their lives. Because of his quick thinking, the hospital burnt to the ground, but nobody died in that fire.
Nice.
But there were a lot of injuries. So he teamed up with Dr. Salton and said, listen, we've got to build a bigger and a better one. We'll get the stores and the, businesses and all the, major people who had money back then to buy into this. And that's when they built the one that I own, and it's made of concrete. It's been, they built it well. That's all I got to say. They did a really good job. But Dr. Conley, he was I call him kind of our superhero. It was because of him. And he teamed up with Dr. Salton, and they just, they were the 2 masterminds behind it. So they did really well.
It's awesome.
Great. Now, how many floors does it have?
It has a basement and 4 floors, so 5 total.
All right.
5 total.
Now, is there any floors that you absolutely hate being alone on?
I don't know if I would say I hate being alone. The one that probably gives me more of the creepy vibes is the basement, just because it's the biggest floor of the hospital, but it's also probably the most historic floor and probably where most of the deaths occurred, in my opinion.
Right.
The basement played different roles over a period of the hospital's time. When the hospital first opened, it was very much your trauma, your ER, your ICU, surgery. The incinerator is down there. The morgue was down there, all of that. And then when they turned it into a clinic, they turned it into a pediatric floor. So all of that history combined just kind of fascinates me because
here, kids, let's throw you into this scary place.
Yeah,
Right.
you would have to see. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, but I can be on every floor of the hospital, and I feel different on every floor. The 4th floor also for me is a little weird, but when you get to the basement, you kind of feel like you're not even in the same building. It's a totally different vibe, at least for me. May not be for others, but sometimes I just get overwhelmed with a sense of sadness because I just know there were a lot of people that passed away down there.
Yeah.
So what was specific about the 4th floor then?
The 4th floor for us, it's one of those floors. It's kind of a mystery, but it's the shortest floor of the hospital, but it's kind of got the weirdest history part of the hospital. The pharmacy was up there, and there were a lot of, and I think what's really neat about this hospital is that there were paranormal activities and stuff going on even when it was still a hospital.
Oh yeah.
So some of the stories that we have received were from actual former patients that were there or former employees that were there. Some of the best stories we got were from them, and they would tell us some of the stuff that would happen on each floor. And the weirdest stories that we got were usually from the 4th floor.
Wow.
For instance, the pharmacy is up on the 4th floor. Now, you wouldn't think the pharmacy would be anything weird, but they had the hardest time keeping employees. Janitors did not want to work past 6 o'clock. They didn't want to clean that floor because they just felt differently up there. They would hear and see things that they couldn't explain. So they were constantly trying to find someone to work on the 4th floor. The other kind of rooms that were up there were the surgical rooms, the observation rooms where the nurses were observed, where the surgeries were taking place. And they would also let loved ones watch you being operated on. So it's kind of a weird mixture of I don't think I would be strong enough to watch, a family member being operated on. But back in the 20s and 30s, they did things a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But you could actually sit in there with the nurses and watch your loved ones being operated on. So it's just such an odd floor, and it's dark.
Wow.
So it's just creepy. The other end of the floor is it was like the doctor's lockers and their personal offices and stuff. Their showers were there, just kind of like their own little, area, I guess, to hang out in.
Yeah. Huh. That's weird. That is weird
Yeah.
that kind of a floor with the pharmacy and that sort of thing. You would expect like maybe the geriatrics ward or the pediatrics ward or something like that would be it, but that's really weird.
Some of the best shadow figures, we've had shadow figures caught on just about every floor, but in my personal opinion, the best ones that have been caught so far has been on the 4th floor. And it's almost like they're running to surgery. It's
Right.
like it's almost like there's something going on, they got to get to it. But the images are just so amazing. It's just, it's like, wow. And some of them that called and wasn't even looking for it, they did it by accident. So that makes it even better. But it's
Right.
some pretty cool images.
Yeah, it's definitely on there on the old bucket list of me, and I think it's on Kelly's bucket list now too.
No, it was on my bucket list when I was up in West Virginia and heard about it.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's.
Yeah, West Virginia is really blessed with a lot of paranormal places to investigate. And like I said, I was just thankful that we were able to save the hospital and not, let someone tear it down or knock it down, because I think, again, it goes back to, I think the spirits in there are just happy to see it active again and happy to have people back in there, and
Right.
because it's been stagnant for so long.
Oh yeah. So of that, what do you have planned coming up for any events? Do you have anything that's going to be like a public event, or do you have any planned parties or anything going
we
on?
do we do a little bit of everything, honestly. We do historical tours, we do paranormal tours, we do flashlight tours, and we host public ones, but we also do private ones as well. So if you have a group of 5 or more, and if it's just you, your friends, or your family, and you want to schedule a private one, we do those. So you don't have to worry about being with 10 or 15 other people. We also do weddings. We also do birthday parties and things like that. We had like 13 weddings in one weekend, about killed us, but they were great.
Wow.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. But it was.
Did they get married in the pharmacy?
No, nobody got married on the first floor. Most everybody got married out in our courtyard.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, if you saw the pictures, you would never guess that was a hospital. We only had 2 couples that did it on the inside, and one did it on the first floor, and one actually did it in the basement.
Oh wow.
And it was the funnest couple. They had a blast with it. The groom was wheeled down. He was in a body bag. So we thought it was freaking hilarious. And the bride was dressed, she was all in black. And they had a lot of fun with it. They had been married previously before, so they wanted to have a more fun wedding.
Right.
And it was great. And we had it, decorated, kind of creepy, but elegant at the same time.
Right.
So the pictures turned out, we wasn't sure how that would work, but it actually turned out really well. So we do have some weddings coming up. We also have public events where you can, we do public ghost hunts, but we also have teams like Haunted Nights and Get Haunted and groups like that come in. If you're not, an experienced paranormal investigator, they will teach you how to investigate, which I think is really cool. It's kind of like investigating 101. And they let you team up with them and show you how to use their equipment and things like that, what to purchase. So we have that coming up in September, and then that leads into our Halloween events and all that fun stuff. So it's a busy schedule pretty much from here on out, but we do also our private investigations. Our teams run out the hospital. We do those 7 days a week. We started out part-time because I really thought people would just want to come on the weekends, but then we started getting phone calls from Monday through Thursday. So basically, yeah, some of them couldn't make weekends. So we just decided to open it up 7 days a week and let them come And we
Yeah.
allow them to check in around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And the building is basically theirs until 8 a.m. the next morning.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
So
fabulous.
we
What do
give
you
them,
charge for the overnight?
it depends on how many you have in your group. For like our base price for 1 to 5 people is $500, and you can split that up into 2 payments. But anything over 5 is basically $100 per person.
Great.
So, and we, like I said, we want you to get the full experience, because like my first experience in there was at 8:15 in the morning.
Nice.
You know, I wasn't expecting that. In my mind, I was expecting 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you know?
Right.
So that's the thing with hospitals. You just never know. But if you think about it, hospitals were probably more active during the day, because that's when visitors were coming. That's when doctors were making the rounds, and, you know, nurses were doing their shift change and all that. So,
Right.
yeah, 8:15 in the morning. I was not prepared for that at all. So it was a little shocker.
What happened at 8:15 in the morning?
We had a team that had spent the night, and I had just come up there just to make sure they were, I didn't know if they had left yet or not. I was just making sure everything was okay and everything was locked up, and they had already left. But as I was walking, I was on the second floor. The second floor is probably what I would say the hot spot of the hospital, or really more consistently is what I would say a consistent hot spot. I think most of the teams that come there pick up at least something on the second floor. And that's where I had my first experience. I was walking, there's a long hallway, and I was walking by one of the rooms. And as I was passing a door to the left of me, I heard a male's voice, just as plain as day, just say, "Hey." And it stopped me in my tracks, because it was so clear. And it was so, I mean, it made the hair stand on my arms, because it startled me. I wasn't expecting anybody to be in the building. And my first thought was, well, it's the group from the night before, because they had 2 men in their group. So
There
I
she
pulled out my phone, and I started texting with them, and I said, "Hey, are you all still in the building?" And they said, "No, Tonya, we left about an hour ago, but we need to tell you, we kept hearing a male's voice on the second floor." So I was convinced someone had broken into the building. I thought there was a man in that building, so I searched everywhere. Long story short, there was no man. I wish I could have a do-over, because I would like to talk to him and handle it a little bit better now, because I wasn't prepared to hear that at 8:15 in the morning. That was just my mind, you know. But then when I got home and started processing all of it, it hit me. I was like, well, Tonya, you know, think about it. Hospitals were probably pretty active at 8 o'clock in the morning. Doctors were probably making the rounds. Nurses were probably doing a shift change. So it would make sense. So
right.
It was a little crazy.
Right. Now, is that probably your craziest experience there, or is there something that tops that?
The voices are hard to beat, because they startle you. You never know when they're going to talk. The one that probably got me the most was in the basement, and it wasn't a voice. It was a door shutting. And I know that might sound a little cheesy, but you would have to see this door. And I tell you when it was near Halloween of last year. And we were doing some of our Halloween events. And we had put a prop in the x-ray room. And this x-ray room, it is still true x-ray room, and it's an old-fashioned x-ray room. So if you remember how x-ray rooms were, they had really heavy doors, and they also laid some carpet in there, so it's not a swinging door. So this door should not shut on its own. It's just too heavy, and plus there's a door stop behind it, so you know it should just stay as it is. But we were at the end of the night. It was close to midnight, and Charlie and I were in the basement just doing a walkthrough, making sure nobody was hiding and all that good stuff. And as we turned to face that x-ray room, that door just starts slowly shutting on its own. Now, mind you, I've been in this basement for the past 3 years hundreds of times, and that door has always been open. I have never seen that door shut. So I just kind of took a step back. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't. And Charlie was like, it's just one of our volunteers messing with us. So he took his flashlight and he shined it behind the door, and he slowly opens the door, and there's nobody there. And I thought, okay, maybe something happened. Maybe something went wrong. So as soon as he let go and took a step back, the door starts slowly shutting again. Now, the door does not shut by itself. Somebody literally or something has to be behind it to shut it.
Had to have been pushing it.
Yeah, that really honestly they had to, because it's not. You would just have to see it and feel it. It's so heavy. And it shut for the second time, and it shut all the way. He went to open it again, and I grabbed his arm and I told him not to, because here's what I think happened. We had a prop in that room, and what the teams basically had to do, it was a dead body, but it looked so real. I mean, a lot of people thought it was an actress that we had hired. The prop looked that real. And what the teams had to do was walk around this body and tell us what they thought she passed away from. And that's it. But we left that body constantly in there. So I told him, I said, I think they think she's real. And normally what happens in an x-ray room, they ask you to leave because of the radiation. They don't want anybody in the room.
Right.
So I think they thought they were working on her, and we were not allowed in there. So I didn't want to piss anybody off. I didn't want to make anybody mad. So I just told him, leave it be. Let's see what happens tomorrow, and we'll take it from there. And when we came back the next day, the door was open.
Wow.
So I can't.
So they not only shut the door, they opened it as well.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow.
And we were the only ones that had access to the building.
Wow.
So again, you would have to know these doors in that room to understand how big of a deal it was. I hate that we didn't get it on camera. I said, I always carry my phone with me.
That's the way it is.
I know. And then if you try, you don't want the whole, well, you're just the owners of the building. You're just making this crap up. I promise you, we were both, I don't even, we were speechless. We didn't even talk for like 15 minutes because I didn't know what to say.
Right.
I told him, I said, they're busy with her. I feel sorry for our prop, but I'm not going back in there. I said, let's go.
Right.
But
I know about that not having a camera thing. I had my whole team was at a location and something was happening to us, and as soon as it was done, I turned around and I looked at every single one of them, and nobody had anything.
Oh.
Like, really? Okay.
That's the kind of luck I had.
Yeah,
I was just
that's the way it happens every time.
I know. And when you're not expecting it, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we were literally down there just walking, making sure everybody was gone. We were turning off some stuff, and it was so eerie because we both turned at the same time and was facing that door. And it's the x-ray room to the right of the hallway. And it's just, when it started shutting, I was like, that door never shuts. It never shuts. It has a door stop.
Wow.
It never shuts. And when it did it twice, he wanted to go in, and I just grabbed it. I'm like, no. And I don't know. It was close
that would
to
be
midnight. A no. I was like, no. I said, it's close to midnight. They're doing stuff. They're busy. They think they're working on her. Let's just leave things be. So we walked out of there. So that to me, even though it was just the door shutting, to have it happen right in front of your face, and then to go back the next day and it be wide open. That was just unreal. The second thing I would think that probably sticks out in my mind the most is still in the basement. We found some old toys that were left behind, and there's this old duck. I don't know if you all have seen it in the videos or anything, but I don't know. This toy, I'm guessing, is probably from the 40s or 50s. I don't know. I've never seen it, but it's a creepy old duck. And we found it in the closet. There was some old toys left behind. There was like a little Christmas tree, some balls, a duck, and I think a rocking horse, and some other stuff. So we just kind of pulled it out and put it as props, just set it in the rooms for investigators to use when they investigate. Well, one of the teams had left the duck in the hallway. And, of course, when you're coming down searching and looking for things, that kind of creeps you out, seeing a toy in the middle of the hallway. And all I had was my flashlight. Of course, I didn't have any equipment, didn't have any recorders. And I walked to the x-ray rooms to check them out. And when I turned around and came back, the duck had moved.
Oh, boy.
I was like, okay, what do I do with this duck? He didn't go very far, but he had moved far enough to know. I know he was going towards a room, and I was like, it's almost like it's one of those pool toys. It probably had a string attached to it at one
Is it
time.
the one that has the flappy legs?
Not that one,
Oh,
but
okay.
it would kind of, it's a plastic one, but it looks like one that possibly had a string that you would pull, but it doesn't have a string anymore. And I think a child probably was playing with it and either had rolled it or was trying to pull it. And it had moved a little bit closer to the room that has an incubator in it. It was close to that.
Wow.
So I went over to it. I tried to interact and try to talk, but it wouldn't move anymore. So I just picked it up and put it on the shelf. So that was a little weird for me too. So now I'm a little bit more used to it. It doesn't freak me out as bad as it first did, but
Right.
I'll tell you.
Well, it definitely
It's
sounds like you have. It definitely sounds like you have an active place in it, and it's great what you're doing to this building and trying to, keep it up and save it from being torn down. That's an amazing thing you did for that location and the community in general.
And the community, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
So,
I think once the community found out what an impact it's made in our economy, and just because when they come here, we also have two lodging facilities that we now open up for our investigators to stay at. Dr. Conley's home is one of them. So
I was just going to ask if there's anybody from out of town that they come up to investigate, where do they have to stay?
Well, we have some Airbnbs and things like that. The only hotel that we had in our little town shut down last year. So Charlie and I decided to renovate Dr. Conley's house. And then while we were doing that, a gentleman that owned a house right outside the hospital's courtyard, basically, both just steps away from the hospital, 30 feet, if that, he came to us and said, "Hey, I don't want this anymore. Would you be willing to purchase this?" So we bought both of them and we opened them up this year for lodging options.
That's fabulous.
I think for Dr. Conley's house, it's pretty cool to stay in one of the co-founders' home. He built that home in the 30s. Of course, we had to remodel some things. I couldn't keep it as true as to what he had it. But it is pretty cool because he had a maid's quarters that had a separate entrance in it, and those buttons, how you would call for a
maid. Oh, I love those. I love those.
They're still there. They don't work, but they're still there. But now some of our teams who've stayed there said that they've heard it go off certain times. So they've also said they've heard footsteps. So that's pretty interesting because nobody's lived in that house since the 90s.
Nice.
So we're not sure what's going on with all of that, but to have one of the original co-founders home is pretty neat for us. And that's also a part of the history of the hospital.
Right.
So Dr. Conley did a great job having that building. It's a beautiful, if you follow us on Facebook, I did kind of a brief walkthrough of it so people could see what they were getting, but he did a great job. It's a beautiful home. So people can rent those if it's available. They can stay there. Literally, when you're done investigating, you can take a couple steps out the back door and be.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's the best way to do it, right there.
Yeah.
Well, we felt really bad when the hotel shut down. We just didn't. Some of our investigators were staying like 30 to 40 miles away because that's the closest hotel. And
they've done that.
Yeah, when you get done investigating at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you're exhausted. You don't really feel like driving. So, some people don't care to, and that's fine. But we have it there as an option if people want to stay.
Right.
So
now,
getting back, it helps the economy. It helps our little city.
Right.
Our city's lost a lot, so we're hoping the hospital can help bring some of that back and kind of rejuvenate and kind of. It's a little thinking outside the box and what our area is a little used to. But I mean, our biggest attraction right now is probably, other than us, is the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System. They put, we're in the land of the Hatfield-McCoys. That's a big draw for a lot of people. But they come in and put in an ATV side-by-side trail that you can ride, and you can take tours through it and everything. So it's a really cool thing.
Fabulous.
So between that and the hospital, it's really helped bring in people that normally would have never even found out where our little area was. So, and when people come, they stay at your places, they eat at your restaurants, they buy gas at your gas station. So it really, really helps all together. And I think once our community started seeing that, it kind of changed their tune a little bit, and we had some more people become positive. We still have the ones that are kind of shocked. They can't believe. Even my own mom, she's like, people really want to come see that old hospital. I'm like, yes, mom, they do.
Right.
It fascinates her because she grew up there, and that's where I was born. She had me in there, and then she lost some of her family in there, and she thinks it's very she's like, I can't believe people would want to. And then when she saw it on Destination Fear, and she's like, I can't believe that. I just can't believe that, So I hear that a lot too. But she
Right.
thinks it's really cool. If she was a little bit younger, she'd probably help me out with it.
There
But
you go.
she unfortunately couldn't.
So how big is your staff, volunteer and paid? How big is the staff?
Unfortunately, we don't have much of one. Where we're just kind of starting out, we really don't financially just don't have it right now to be able to pay anybody. So Charlie and I do the bulk of the work. So we're usually it. But we do have 3 great volunteers that help us out when we need them. So
Fabulous.
we're hoping to build on that as we go along and it gets a little busier. Because it's really hard to kind of, especially now that we've added the 2 lodging. Because I feel like Charlie and I feel like we're maids and butlers and house cleaning and now, doing all this stuff.
Right.
But we love it. We love doing it. It's really hard for 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's just hard for 2 people to manage, but so far so good. We're doing okay. And our 3 volunteers are awesome. We couldn't be able probably to do a lot of it without them. So we're hoping at some point in time we can actually start employing people, but we probably got a little ways to go before we can do that.
Yeah, you're only you're only at year 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're entering, this is our 3rd year. We opened in February of 21.
That's awesome. That is so good.
Well, I'm sold. We need to try to plan a road trip up there next
We need
year.
to do a whole weekend thing, and then we get to do the side by sides, and we get to the house, and we get to do the investigation. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Listen, I can hook you up to there's a lot of cool places. People don't really realize about Mingo County until all the teams that I talk to, I tell them to Google it. I mean, if you Google Mingo County, West Virginia, do you want to take a guess at what our nickname is? Bloody Mingo. So yeah. So if you're looking for the gore, the battles, the massacres, the unsolved murders, there's several places I can send you to for free that you can do. You can go look. I don't know if they let you investigate, but you can definitely go check it out.
We can do it secretly.
Right.
Yeah,
We're
one
good
of
at
the
that.
areas that I always send people to is a place called Dingus Tunnel. That's very fascinating. If you Google it, it tells you a lot. It was a tunnel built by the slaves in the 1800s. Unfortunately, a lot of them were killed.
Wow.
So it's really neat, but it's all within like a 10-mile radius, and you could spend a whole weekend just if you're into history and you're into the paranormal, just so much stuff that you could really and Mankato County is the youngest county in the state of West Virginia.
Wow.
But it's probably one of the most historical ones. It's really, really interesting. So
I was impressed with
if you
West
guys decide
Virginia
to come,
when I went up there. So I'm dying to get back.
West Virginia unfortunately gets a bad rap most of the time. I mean, people don't really, it's such a beautiful state, and no matter what part of the state you go to, there's always something different. And there's so much history, and the coal mining industry was huge, but there's a lot to that, and there's more to it, and there's just so much to see and do. And when they opened the Hatfield-McCoy Trail system here for our county, it really opened the path for others to come in, because they were not allowed to ride their side-by-sides or dirt bikes or four-wheelers in their, like if they lived in New Jersey or Pennsylvania or wherever, it was kind of like a no-no. You had to go to a specific place to ride. Here in Williamson, you can park your truck, get on an ATV, and ride anywhere you want to go. Like if you want to ride up to the hospital for a tour, you can do that. If you want to pull into a restaurant to eat, you can do that. So they love that. Trail riders love that. So it's made a huge impact for us. So, it's something different, but absolutely, I could hook you up with some people that rent the side-by-sides and hit the trails.
Heck yeah.
Go visit some. I always recommend taking the tours.
Let's go.
We got some awesome tour guides that will actually take you to the Hatfield-McCoy feud sites and graveyards. stuff like
Nice.
that. So Devil Ants is great.
Yeah, the
and all
historian
that.
in me
So
is
it's pretty
just going
cool.
nuts right now.
Right.
It's like, ooh.
It's yeah, honestly, and the little town of Matewan, I don't know if you've ever heard that. It's just 10 minutes from us. A lot of history in that little town that I recommend people visit. The Matewan Massacre was really huge. They made a movie about it. I think James Earl Jones was in that.
Nice.
But just so much history here. If you're into history, you guys would
Oh
love
yeah.
There you go.
Eat, breathe, sleep history.
Right. So if somebody wants, so if somebody wants to book an investigation or just a tour, a wedding, whatever, how do they do that?
Several different ways. They can give us a call or a text if they prefer to talk to someone in person. Our phone number is area code 304-953-0987. If they want to look us up on the web, our website is collegehillhospital.com. I know you just got shocked, didn't you? Somebody scared you.
My wife opened the door and it startled me.
I saw the look. I do.
Oh,
And then we're pretty much on every
Scares
social
easily.
media. That's funny.
yeah.
We're pretty much on every social media site that you can think of. Facebook is probably our biggest following. That's where we tend to post most everything. So you can either find us at Old Hospital on College Hill or College Hill Hospital.
Okay.
We're on
Oh, yeah.
Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of that.
Like I said,
All
I'm
those
sold.
lovely,
Like I said, I'm
places.
I'm
Me
sold.
too.
I just got to convince the wife to drive.
When's your
that for
next
us, so
vacation?
I got to
Yeah.
convince.
Oh heck, let's
Come
just
on
get a
down.
party bus. I'll drive.
We should
There you go.
rent us an RV or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fun, yeah.
It would. All right.
Oh.
But Tonya, I really
Yeah, but
appreciate.
then you guys would find out how much I snore.
Well, Tonya, I really appreciate you taking the time this evening to come on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's been really fun
Thank
and
you so
informative.
much.
And like I said, we hopefully, fingers crossed, will be seeing you before it's said and done.
That would be great. You guys just message me or call or text or
Absolutely.
whatever you're ready.
Absolutely.
I'd love to have
Yeah.
you.
All right. Well, everybody, I want to thank Tonya Webb, the co-owner of the Old Hospital on College Hill. Again, I want to thank Kelly for joining me again this week as my secondary host, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it. We are the host of this show, so there we go. Anyways, Kelly, we'll catch you next time. Tonya, thank you again, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Have a good
Bye.
evening.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Medics for Paranormal, PPF Investigations, and the Unseen Paranormal Podcast present the Tennessee Haunts and Legends Expo, coming October 21st, 2023 to the Fairgrounds, Nashville, in Nashville, Tennessee, featuring over 80 vendors, paranormal teams, and historic locations, as well as a full schedule of speakers with topics including Bigfoot, the Bell Witch, paranormal investigations, and more. A majority of the proceeds will benefit a local historic location and a local charity. For more information and how to be a vendor, please visit tnhauntsandlegendsexpo.com. Tickets on sale soon.